I've been involved in long-range forecasting for many years, and I have never seen an event like this.
Something extraordinary is developing beneath the surface of the tropical Pacific, which has the power to reshape weather across the globe. It is a natural climate pattern called El Niño.
The reality is we're already within the El Niño event.
We're already up at levels that are typical for a very strong event at its peak. The peak is still several months away.
This strong El Niño may give us all a glimpse of our climate future, which is already taking shape.
If you thought the weather in 2026 was extreme, well, 2027 is set to be a lot worse, and that's because of a powerful El Niño event developing over the Pacific Ocean. It's likely to be the strongest in over 100 years, potentially making next year the hottest on record, bringing extreme droughts in some parts of the world, torrential rain in others. Over the next 10 minutes, we'll explain what El Niño is, the impacts it can have, and whether there is a link to climate change. First, let's start with the basics. What is El Niño? Here's Simon King from BBC Weather.
El Niño is a natural climate pattern where the tropical Pacific Ocean warms up well above normal levels. Think of the Pacific like a radiator. When it's turned on, the heat transfers into the atmosphere, boosting the global average temperature.
So how does the El Niño weather pattern form? Here's BBC Weather's Sarah Keith-Lucas to explain.
El Niño can affect weather patterns around the world, and it starts in the tropical Pacific Ocean with a change in temperature and wind. The usual east to west trade winds can weaken or even reverse, and that allows warm waters to gather in the central and eastern Pacific. That in turn can bring wetter weather to the west coast of South America and drier conditions the other side of the Pacific. But it can have much further reaching impacts too. Global temperatures are typically boosted by about 0.2 Celsius during El Niño. Some places like the Horn of Africa can become much wetter, whilst in the UK, El Niño can increase our risk of seeing a colder winter. El Niño events typically last around 1 year. They occur every 2 to 7 years, but no two El Niño episodes are the same.
So what about this El Niño? Experts believe it could be the strongest ever. It's been called super, mega, even a Godzilla El Niño. Here's our climate editor Justin Rowlott on how it's been building.
El Niño is one of the most important weather patterns on the planet, helping drive extreme weather around the world. Now, our globe, look at that, pretty impressive, eh? Shows the pattern of heat in the tropical Pacific Ocean. That is the engine room of El Niño. Now, at the end of last year, that's what we're showing here, it was still showing the impacts of El Niño's sister weather pattern, La Niña, which has a cooling effect. And you can see heat over there in the west, cooler temperatures over here in the east. Now, as we move into this year, look at that. The normal winds, the trade winds have weakened, on some occasions even reversed, allowing the warmer surface water to move eastwards across the Pacific. You can see it there building up off the coast of South America. Now that is a classic sign of an impending El Niño.
So how concerning is it? Well, experts around the world have been warning about the potential for a record-breaking El Niño for months now. And here in the UK, the official Weather and Climate Service says it could be the strongest in living memory.
The tropical Pacific is warming faster than I've ever seen, and assuming the forecasts are correct, and we've got very high confidence at this stage, the El Niño is very slow developing, it takes many months, so we're pretty confident about the outcome. We think that when it peaks in November and December, it's likely to be record event, unprecedented, beyond anything we've seen in living memory.
So what about the impacts? Well, they're expected to be different depending on where you are in the world, especially when it comes to rainfall. We're likely to see drier conditions and higher risks of wildfires in Australia and the Amazon. It's also likely to be a weaker monsoon season in India, reducing the rain that farmers rely on. But there'll be probably far more rain in the southern United States, bringing with it the risk of flooding and powerful storms. Here's Ben Rich from BBC Weather with more.
The strongest impacts on the weather are felt close to the tropical Pacific, where El Niño is actually taking place. For parts of Peru and Ecuador, for example, it brings the increased threats of flooding and landslides, the same for the southern USA. But in Australia and Southeast Asia, it means the risk of more droughts and more wildfires. But even further afield, there are weather impacts. In the Atlantic, we tend to see a suppressed hurricane season in El Nino years, and that is exactly what we have right now. Only 3 named storms so far. The Indian monsoon tends to be suppressed. So far this year, that has brought less rainfall than normal. And even here in the UK, there can be impacts. The Met Office is expecting a stormy and wet autumn.
So that's what could be on the horizon. Let's look at what's happened in previous El Nino weather events. Here's Simon King again.
Well, the last El Nino in 2023-24 helped make 2024 the warmest year on record. And during the last very strong El Nino in 2015-2016, there was severe drought in parts of Africa and the Caribbean. Increased wildfires hit Central Asia, and there was a huge impact on food. The droughts and floods caused by that El Nino a decade ago affected the food security of more than 60 million people, according to the UN. Chocolate is one example where we could be paying more later this year and into next. After the last El Nino, chocolate got 15% more expensive because dry weather in Ghana and the Ivory Coast affected the cocoa harvests.
Well, you heard there a bit about the cocoa impacts of the 2015 El Nino, but it isn't just the price of chocolate that is going to be affected when it comes to trade. We're already seeing issues with food production. For the first time in a decade, India has started to import sugar. Reduced rainfall due to El Nino has affected supplies, and that's in a country that's the world's second largest sugar producer and exporter. There's also an issue in Panama, where drought is limiting ships passing through the Panama Canal, as our international business correspondent Theo Leggett explains.
The canal connects the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, but most of it is above sea level. That's the problem. It's fed by rainwater, and vessels going through have to negotiate a series of locks. And every time one of them does so, it requires tens of millions of gallons of fresh water. Now, the water supply is held in lakes in Panama, which also feed citizens of Panama City. If too much water is being lost and there's not enough rainfall, and that's the situation we're seeing at the moment, flow through the canal has to be reduced. And October and November are when there should be peak rainfall, but this year is expected to be much less than usual, hence the restrictions on traffic through the Panama Canal.
So if this El Nino weather pattern could make 2027 the hottest year on record, what about this year? Has it already had an impact on temperatures? Ben Rich from BBC Weather is back with the answer.
So far in 2026, El Nino has not had a big impact on temperatures around the globe. The bigger drivers of the hot weather we've seen have been general weather patterns, but also the impacts of man-made climate change. However, as we move through the rest of the year, scientists think El Nino will start to have a bigger impact on temperatures around the world.
Well, a lot of you are asking if El Nino could be the strongest on record. It is hard to judge exactly which El Nino weather event holds that record, but it is widely believed to be the El Nino of 1877. Here's Ben again on how this one could compare.
1877 brought what is widely considered to have been the strongest El Nino on record. Now, measurements of sea temperatures were not as accurate back then, but it is thought that sea surface temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific got to about 3.5 degrees above the norm. This El Nino that's developed right now is forecast to bring sea temperatures 3 degrees or more above the long-term average. So this one may be just about as bad, but the thing you have to remember is that we also have the effects of climate change. Since the 19th century, global temperatures have risen by around 1.4 degrees Celsius. Add El Nino on top of that, the impacts are likely to be greater.
So you heard Ben hint there at how climate change plays a part. To explain how the two are linked, here's our climate editor, Justin Rolat.
El Nino is happening on top of the long-term increase in temperatures caused by climate change. Now, that is shown by this line. Now, if I add in El Nino years, shown in red, you can see how they peak temperatures. Add in La Nina, the cooler sister weather pattern to El Nino, in blue, and you can see that drives temperatures down. What it's telling us is that while climate change isn't making El Nino happen more often, it is amplifying its effects, because a warmer atmosphere and oceans fuels more intense heat, more droughts and more heavy rainfall, which is why some weather experts are saying this strong El Niño may give us all a glimpse of our climate future, which is already taking shape.
So that's all you need to know about the unprecedented El Niño.